What if Neji Hyuga never died? Just how different would the Naruto story be? Would things end up for better or would they end up for worse? In today's edition of Naruto What If, I'm gonna look at just that scenario. 7 years ago, when the chapter for Neji's death was released, it was one of the most talked about moments in the Naruto community. Some fans called it a straight out cop-out to kill a character who hadn't been relevant in years. Others were torn up over Neji dying to save Naruto. And you had other fans who were waiting to see which member of the Konoha 11 would die next. Back then, you had more Naruto fans who were convinced that Sakura would be the one who died, given the strong parallels between Team Minato and between Team Kakashi. At this point in the story, Obito was pushing Naruto to try and pressure him in ways that Obito could relate to just to see Naruto's response, and the popular belief at the time was that Sakura would serve the role of Rin, the female character who the main hero was infatuated with, dead before his very eyes. I'll admit to being one of those people on Naruto base and other websites who openly wonder if Sakura will be the next person to die. Instead of giving us what we expected, Masashi Kishimoto recreated the deaths of Minato and Kushina, both giving their lives to save Naruto. In this scenario, Neji gave his life and saved Naruto and Hinata. So that brings us to the topic of this video. What if Neji never died? In order for this to happen, we have to first look at how he died and then establish a trigger point. When Neji died, all the ninja in close proximity of Naruto were either dead or they're in the process of dying. Neji and Hinata were the closest living people nearby. The Jubi's projectiles were fast enough that not even the rotation of the Hyuga clan could successfully prevent a strike. Even Neji, someone who was touted as being a genius of the Hyuga clan, either got scratched or he came close to being hit by the projectiles, at one point having his headband knocked off. Given the location in the manga of where Hinata's father was, he wouldn't be able to play the exact same role that Neji did, since Hinata's father was further away, closer to the other Hyuga clan members than Naruto, whereas Hinata had already begun to make her way closer to Naruto once she saw that Naruto was in trouble. Hinata would still be the very first person to arrive, and like Hinata's father stated in the manga, Hinata, Hyuga, and Neji's rotation would be too slow to deflect a point-blank attack by the Jubi. This leaves us with two real options. Option number one, Neji uses a substitution jutsu at the very last minute, but given the speed of the projectiles, it's very possible that it breaks through the substitution object that Neji uses and it ends up impaling Hinata and Naruto. Now, scenario two is that Neji, who was the closest to the Ten Tails out of anybody on the battlefield, and he was further away from Naruto and Hinata. Instead, Neji mistimes his jump in order to jump in front of the Ten Tails like he did originally, and Hinata ends up being double penetrated from behind by the Ten Tails, just as Neji was in the manga when he jumped in front of the attack that ultimately killed him. The spears would rip Hinata apart and exit through the front of her body, stopping just inches before Naruto's face. Blood dripping from the spears. Splotches of Hinata's blood would splatter across Naruto's face. Hinata would struggle once again to confess her love to Naruto, but would cough blood as she tried to work up the strength to speak her very last words to him. While the rest of the alliance went on the offensive, Naruto would scream out in agony for help. As Naruto cradled Hinata's dead body, blood seeping into his clothes, Naruto would watch with a quiet anger as he struggled to comprehend what just happened. Naruto would recall Hinata confessing her love for him in the pain arc and how she was so ready to die for him back then, only this time Hinata did indeed die. Obito would look on with a smirk on his face, and he would remind Naruto of his vow to never let any of his friends die, which would cause Naruto to look down at Hinata and then slowly at all the other dead ninja around him. The news of Hinata's death would cause the Hyuga clan to go into a rage, likely led by Hinata's father. Her peers would be too stunned to move, just as they were when they found out that Neji had died. Neji would immediately move to grab Naruto by the collar, hoisting him up, and shout at Naruto to get a hold of himself, reminding him of his ninja way. Neji would tell Naruto how deeply Hinata loved him, that she valued his life over hers, and that for the sake of her memory, Naruto must find the strength to keep fighting. And he would remind Naruto that the Ninja Alliance would give their lives if it meant that Naruto could live, since it gave them the best chance to win. But when it came to Hinata, Hinata would give her life thousands of times over if it meant Naruto could leave unharmed. Naruto's hands would shake as he looked down at Hinata's dead body, and Naruto would angrily rise up with his QB chakra mode activated, and he would place his hand on Neji's shoulder, transferring his chakra while vowing to win the war and looking directly at Obito and Madara Uchiha. From here, not much would change. Naruto would still pass on his chakra to the Shinobi Alliance, but in this scenario, Neji, being the genius that he is, would lead the attack against the Jubi, and it should be noted that the power up that Neji would get would be absolutely insane. Hinata, someone much weaker than Neji, was able to blow back the attacks of the Ten Tails with just a portion of Naruto's power, so imagine what Neji could have done in this scenario. In the meantime, Sasuke would still meet with the dead Hokages, asking what it means to be a ninja, asking what it means to have a village, what it means to be a Hokage, and then bring them to the battlefield after giving Hashirama his answer. By the time Madara extracts the QB from Naruto, Neji would angrily wonder if this was truly what destiny had in store for them, and if destiny was something that they could fight after all. He would recall how Naruto vowed that destiny was something that could be changed, and that they as people wrote their own destiny. Neji would think about how first Hinata was dead, and now Naruto was close to dying, only living because Sakura had cut a hole in his ribcage and had physically pumped chakra into his heart by wrapping her hand around Naruto's heart and forcing it to beat by using her chakra as a way to do so. After Might Guy opens up the 8th gate, Neji will watch in awe as Might Guy pushes Madara to his limits. Naruto and Sasuke would still get their power up from the Sage of Six Paths, getting the seals as well as getting the Sage of Six Paths chakra, and they would still go on to fight Madara and their Sage of Six Paths powers, and Kaguya would eventually be revived after Black Zetsu betrays Madara. While Neji is in the Infinite Tsukiyomi, more than likely Neji's Infinite Tsukiyomi dream will be Neji thinking about a life with his father. The final battle with Naruto versus Sasuke would still occur over the next day, with Naruto coming out on top after the iconic Chidori versus Rasengan clash. After the war, Hinata would be buried alongside all the other fodder ninja who died in the war, and Sasuke will still be placed in prison until the end of Tsunade's tenure as Hokage. If Neji learns of Naruto being the reincarnation of the Sage of Six Paths son, it's likely that Neji once again questions Naruto's beliefs about destiny, but I believe that once it's revealed that Naruto is the son of the 4th Hokage, which does happen after the 4th Great Ninja War, I could see a scenario where Neji stands a chance of briefly flirting with regressing back to his old self, the same version of the character that we saw in the Chunin exams, with only the memory of Hinata Hyuga being what keeps him from fully going over the edge. Where things get really tricky is when we get to the events of Naruto the Last, in particular when it comes to Toneri, and it's mainly if you look at the novelization of the story, which gives a more fleshed out scenario for what happens during the events of the Last. After he arrived on Earth, he did so with the intention of taking Hanabi's eyes and making Hinata his bride. With Hinata dead, it's very possible that Toneri looks for another Hyuga's eyes to take, and it would have to be somebody young who has the Byakugan, and I could also see him taking Hanabi as his bride. If this does indeed happen, Neji would likely join the Hanabi rescue team, and I could see a scenario where Kakashi names him as the squad leader since he's been a Jonin for a longer time, but the most likely scenario is that Shikamaru still becomes the leader because he wouldn't be as emotionally connected as Neji would be in this scenario. Hinata's death would become a problem once we get to the Naruto versus Toneri battle. If we go by the information that's presented in the novelization, it is directly stated more than once that Hinata is the only one who can destroy the Tenseigan bomb that Toneri created. This means that Naruto would have to beat Toneri so badly that he forces him to undo the jutsu. The other alternative is that Hanabi, being the next in line at the Hyuga clan, is able to take Hinata's place, gaining the power power up from Hamura's chakra, which means that she'll be able to assist Naruto in defeating Toneri and blowing up the Tenseigan bomb. And it should be noted that over the next 10 plus years that Hanabi would continue to grow stronger, just as Hinata did after getting Hamura's chakra. Now, on a darker note, the third scenario, which is a likely one, but I'll let you guys decide which one you think is the most likely. But in this third scenario, you could have a situation where Hanabi is not allowed to take Hamura's chakra, which means that if Naruto cannot make Toneri undo the jutsu, that the time would run out and that the Raikage will use his chakra cannon to blow up the moon. And if this does happen, Naruto and the rest of his team will look on as the beam of light rockets towards them, and in a sonic explosion, Naruto would die. But if we go with the scenario where Hanabi is allowed to get the chakra of Hamura, then the events of Naruto the Last would still end on a happy note. By the time that Naruto Uzumaki becomes 7th Hokage, Naruto wouldn't have gotten married like his peers, like Neji, who probably would have had a few children with Tenten. This means that while all the other members of Boruto's generation are being born, Boruto Uzumaki and his sister would have never seen the light of day. As Naruto looks over the village from his Hokage office, part of him would think back to the moment when the thumb-twiddling girl, who he once called a creepy weirdo, gave her life to save his, and he realized that she loved him more than he ever knew. Though the village itself would be Naruto's family, Naruto would never quite feel the same as he went back home to an empty house, just as he had done ever since he was a young boy. So what did you guys think about this what if, man? I know a lot of people have asked me in the past, what if Neji's never died? So let me know, guys, let me know. How do you think things would have turned out if Hinata would have died and Neji would have lived? What do you think the most likely scenario during the events of Naruto the Last is? I'm so curious to read you guys' comments down in the section below. But as always, guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Have an awesome day, guys.